The thing about finally having your own space is that you learn what silence actually sounds like. Not the angry kind from my childhood. Not the punishing kind when mom would stop talking to me for days because I said the wrong thing. Real silence. The kind where you can hear the rain against the windows and your own breathing, and nothing else demanding anything from you. I'd been sitting in that silence for maybe an hour, just existing in my Seattle apartment, when the doorbell rang. Not a knock, a doorbell, followed immediately by aggressive knocking, like whoever was out there had already decided patience wasn't part of the plan. My apartment had been mine for 2 years now. Every piece of furniture I'd chosen myself, every bill I'd paid on time. The kind of peace I'd fought for, worked 80-hour weeks for, skipped meals and social events for. The kind of peace that cost me everything, and somehow still felt worth it. I wasn't expecting anyone. The knocking came again, harder this time. I pushed back from my desk, my chair groaning under my weight in that way that always made my chest tight. The walk from my home office to the front door felt longer than it should have. Something in my gut already knew. When I opened the door, there they were. Mom and Chelsea. My mother stood there in her worn jacket, the one she'd had since I was in high school. Lipstick slightly smudged like she'd applied it in the car. Chelsea was beside her, scrolling on her phone, not even bothering to look up. Designer bag on her shoulder. The real kind, not a knockoff. The kind I could afford now but would never buy because I still remembered eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week in college. Surprise, Mom said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did when she looked at me. Aren't you going to invite us in? I stepped aside. What else could I do? They were already pushing past me, Chelsea's perfume choking the air, something expensive and overwhelming. Mom's eyes were already scanning my living room, taking inventory. The new couch, the large TV, the art on the walls that actually meant something to me. Nice place, Mom said, and the way she said it made it sound like an accusation. Really nice. I closed the door. My hand was shaking. I pressed my palm flat against the wood until it stopped. We drove all the way from Spokane. Mom continued, settling onto my couch like she owned it. Chelsea was already in my kitchen, opening my fridge. Your cousin Jennifer, you know, the one who works at that tech company? She happened to mention what you make now. $180,000 a year, Sarah. A year. There it was. The number hung in the air between us like smoke. I watched my mother's face, looking for something, anything that resembled pride, happiness for me. But all I saw was calculation. The same look she used to give the bills when I was a kid, trying to figure out which one to pay first. That's a lot of money for one person, she said slowly, especially for someone who doesn't even have a family to support. Chelsea emerged from the kitchen with one of my LaCroix sparkling waters, the expensive kind I bought as a small luxury. Do you have anything that's actually good? This tastes like TV static. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was closing up the way it used to in high school when Chelsea would bring her friends over and Mom would introduce me as the smart one while looking at Chelsea like she was Starlight. Mom leaned forward. Chelsea needs help, Sarah. She's got this amazing business opportunity, a boutique concept, very innovative, but she needs capital. Startup costs, you know how it is. I knew how it was. I knew that Chelsea had started and abandoned 4 different business ideas in the past 3 years. I knew that Mom had remortgaged her house to fund 2 of them. I knew that I was the one who'd sent money for groceries when that all fell apart. How much? I asked. My voice sounded far away. 50,000, Mom said, like it was nothing. Like it wasn't a year of my life spent staring at screens until my eyes burned. Like it wasn't every time I'd chosen work over sleep, over dating, over living. You can afford it. Look at this place. Chelsea was looking at me now, finally. Her eyes traveled down my body, slow and deliberate, the way they always did, taking in my size, my stretched sweater, my sweatpants. I felt sweat starting to bead at my hairline. I mean, it's not like you spend it on clothes or anything, Chelsea said, shrugging. And you're always working anyway. What else are you going to do with it? Something cracked inside my chest. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a lake. That first fracture before everything gives way. But I didn't let it show. I'd learned that much. Instead, I felt my face go smooth, empty. My hands stopped shaking. I looked at my mother, at my sister, at these 2 people who I'd spent 32 years trying to be good enough for. I need to think about it, I heard myself say. Mom's expression shifted. Not disappointed, annoyed. Think about what? We're family, Sarah. Family helps family. The rain outside picked up, harder now, drumming against the windows. I wondered if they could hear my heart doing the same thing against my ribs. Chelsea was already sprawling on my couch, shoes on the cushions. "We'll stay a few days," she announced. "Give you time to think. Plus, I need to scout locations anyway. Seattle has such a better market than Spokane." I should have said no. Should have stood in my doorway, my space, my peace, and said the word that had been living in my throat for 3 decades. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat in front of my computer. The code was still there, waiting, 3 lines deep into debugging, the rest of my life suspended in that moment before the doorbell rang. I could hear them in my living room, already making themselves comfortable. Chelsea's laugh, Mom opening and closing cabinets in my kitchen, probably judging what I kept there. My hands found the keyboard, but I wasn't typing code anymore. I was making a list. They stayed. 1 night became 2. 2 became 4. By the end of the first week, Chelsea's suitcase had exploded across my guest room like a bomb went off, and Mom had rearranged my kitchen cabinets because it makes more sense this way. I didn't say anything. That was the part they couldn't understand. They kept waiting for me to snap, to yell, to become the emotional mess they'd always known. The girl who used to cry in her room when Chelsea got the bigger birthday cake. The teenager who'd apologize for existing. But I just watched. Morning coffee became a study in human entitlement. Chelsea would use the last of my oat milk, the expensive kind from the farmer's market, and leave the empty carton in the fridge. Not in the trash, in the fridge. Like someone else would magically deal with it. I'd stand there, door open, cold air washing over me, and I'd just look at that empty carton. My fingers would drum against the refrigerator handle. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm only I could hear. Then I'd close the door and drink my coffee black. Mom watched me during these moments. I could feel her eyes tracking my movements, trying to read me. She'd always been able to before. One look, and she'd know exactly which buttons to push, which guilt to deploy. But something was different now. I'd catch her frown in my peripheral vision, confused, like I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit anymore. "You're being very quiet, Sarah," she'd say, stirring her coffee. My coffee. In my mug, at my table. I'd just nod, chew my toast slowly, let the silence stretch until it made her uncomfortable. By day 3, Chelsea had taken over my living room. Her ring light was set up by my bookshelf. She was filming content, talking to her phone like it was her best friend, using my apartment as her backdrop, my art, my view of the Seattle skyline, my life, repackaged as hers. "Hey guys, so I'm in Seattle scouting locations for the boutique," she'd say, all fake enthusiasm and whitened teeth. "Staying with family, you know how it is. Supportive vibes only." I watched from the kitchen doorway. She didn't notice me. She never did unless she needed something. That night, I heard her talking to someone on the phone in the guest room. The walls in my apartment were thin. A compromise I'd accepted because everything else was perfect. "Yeah, she's being super weird about the money," Chelsea said. I could picture her, sprawled on my guest bed, probably getting makeup on my pillowcases. Like, she has it. I've seen her bank app open on her laptop, but she's playing hard to get or something. My hand stopped halfway to the bathroom door. I stood there in the hallway, in the dark, listening. I don't know, she's always been like this. Selfish. Mom says it's because she's jealous that nobody wants her, so she hoards everything she has. Chelsea laughed. The sound traveled through the wall and landed in my chest like a stone. I mean, I get it. When you look like that, money's probably all you've got going for you. I should have walked away, gone to my room, put in headphones, but I stood there and listened to every word, filed it away, added it to the list that was growing in my mind like a spreadsheet. Date, time, offense, evidence. The next morning, Mom started her campaign over breakfast. "You know, Sarah, family is everything. When you have money, you share it. That's what love looks like." She was using her soft voice, her reasonable voice, the one she'd used to convince me to skip my college graduation so I could help Chelsea move into her first apartment. I forked my eggs, chewed, swallowed. The eggs tasted like nothing. "Your sister has a real opportunity here. This could change her life." I took a sip of orange juice. Let the silence sit between us like a third person at the table. Mom's patience was cracking. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, the way her fingers gripped her coffee mug just a little too hard. "Are you even listening to me?" I looked up, met her eyes, said nothing. That afternoon, I went to my neighborhood coffee shop to work. The one with the good Wi-Fi and the barista who never commented on my size, who just made my latte and smiled like I was a person worth smiling at. I opened my laptop, checked my phone. Chelsea had posted on Instagram. It was a video. Her, in my living room, panning across to show my couch, my windows. "When your sister has the perfect Seattle aesthetic but zero sense of how to use it," she'd written. "Some people have money but no taste, you know?" The next slide was a close-up of my fridge, my magnet collection, the photos I'd put up. "Living her best single life," Chelsea had added, with a laughing emoji. The comments were already rolling in. Her followers, strangers, all laughing, all agreeing, all deciding who I was based on 30 seconds of video. I felt the heat rise up my neck, across my face. My hands started to shake. The woman at the next table glanced over, concerned. I closed Instagram, opened my notes app, added screenshots to the folder I'd started, the one titled simply, Evidence. My hands stopped shaking. The heat faded. Something cold took its place. That night I was washing dishes when I heard them. Mom and Chelsea in the living room, talking like I wasn't home, like I didn't matter enough to whisper. "She's such a cow," Chelsea said. I could hear the smile in her voice. "A fat, lonely cow with a bank account." Mom laughed. Actually laughed. "Chelsea, don't be mean." "I'm not being mean, I'm being honest. She's got nothing else. No boyfriend, no life, no friends that I've seen. Just money in this sad little apartment." "Well," Mom said, and I could hear her settling into the couch. My couch. "At least the money's going to good use soon. Family takes care of family." I stood at the sink, hands in soapy water, and I let myself feel it. All of it. The humiliation. The rage. The grief for the mother I'd always wanted but never had. The sister who could have been my friend. I felt it all. Let it wash through me like a wave. And then I let it go. I dried my hands, walked past the living room without looking at them, went to my room. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly, carefully. The kind of quiet that sounds like a decision being made. Mom announced the dinner on a Tuesday. Not asked. Announced. "I've invited some family over this Friday," she said, standing in my kitchen like she paid the rent. "Your Aunt Linda, Uncle Marco, the cousins. Everyone's so excited to see you." I was pouring cereal. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. "It'll be nice," Mom continued. "A real family dinner. And Chelsea can present her business plan properly. You know, so everyone understands how legitimate this is." There it was. The real agenda. Public pressure, witnesses, a room full of people who'd watch me say no to family and judge me for it. I lifted the spoon to my mouth, chewed slowly, swallowed. "Okay," I said. Mom blinked. She'd been ready for a fight. "Okay? Okay." I could see the confusion flash across her face, quickly replaced by satisfaction. She thought she'd won. Friday came. I worked from home that day. My door closed while I listened to Mom and Chelsea transform my apartment. Furniture moving, dishes clattering, Chelsea on the phone ordering food on my Uber Eats account, probably not planning to pay me back. At 6, the doorbell started ringing. Aunt Linda arrived first, her perfume announcing her before she even entered. Then Uncle Marco with his too firm handshake and his opinions about everything. The cousins trickled in, faces I saw once a year at Thanksgiving. Strangers who shared my blood but nothing else. They filled my living room, sat on my furniture, drank my wine. I stayed in the kitchen, arranging plates I didn't need to arrange, watching them through the doorway. "Sarah," Mom called, her voice sticky sweet. "Come sit with your family." I walked into the living room. Every seat was taken except for one chair, positioned at the center like a throne or a witness stand. I sat. Mom stood, glass in hand, playing hostess in my home. "I'm so glad we could all be here tonight. Family is everything, isn't it? And Sarah has done so well for herself." She gestured around my apartment like she'd built it herself. "We're all so proud." Murmurs of agreement. Aunt Linda nodded. Uncle Marco raised his glass. "And now," Mom continued, "she has the opportunity to help family, to invest in something real." Chelsea stood up, tablet in hand. She'd dressed for this, blazer, heels, playing entrepreneur. "So, as you all know, I'm launching a boutique. she began. Her voice had that rehearsed quality, like she'd practiced in the mirror. Sustainable fashion, crystals, wellness products. The Seattle market is perfect for it. She swiped through slides on her tablet. Mood boards, Instagram aesthetics. Nothing concrete, no numbers, no real plan. Initial investment needed is $50,000, Chelsea said, looking directly at me, which, considering the profit potential, is really nothing. The room turned to me, all those eyes, waiting. Mom sat down, touching my shoulder. Sarah's going to help. Aren't you, honey? Family helps family. Uncle Marco leaned forward. It's a solid opportunity, Sarah. And Chelsea's got the vision. She just needs the capital. Aunt Linda chimed in. We all support each other. That's what we do. I could feel the sweat starting at my hairline, the familiar tightness in my chest, my body wanting to fold in on itself, to disappear. But I didn't move. I just looked at them, one by one, really looked. At Mom, who'd chosen Chelsea's minor inconvenience over my college graduation. At Chelsea, who'd posted my life online for laughs. At the cousins who'd never called unless they needed something. At the aunt and uncle who couldn't remember my birthday, but somehow knew my salary. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. Chelsea shifted her weight, her confidence cracking. I reached for my water glass, took a sip, set it down carefully. If you've ever dealt with toxic family, if you know what it's like to be undervalued, to have your worth measured only in what you can give, you understand this moment. This is where you decide. Subscribe if you want to see how this ends, because I promise you, it's worth it. Comment below. Would you give money to family that humiliates you? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. I picked up my napkin, folded it slowly, precisely, set it beside my plate. I need to think about it, I said. My voice was quiet, steady, cold. Mom's smile froze. Think about what? We've been here for 2 weeks. You've had time. I stood up. All eyes followed me. You can stay tonight, I said. But I have an important meeting tomorrow morning. Early. I walked to my bedroom, closed the door. Behind me, I could hear the confused murmurs. Mom's frustrated voice. Chelsea's whining. But I didn't hear any of it. Not really. Because inside my room I was already planning. Tomorrow wasn't about a meeting. Tomorrow was about justice. I woke up at 5. The apartment was still dark. Quiet except for the sound of Chelsea snoring in the guest room. I got dressed in the clothes I'd laid out the night before. Pressed slacks, a blazer, the armor I wore to important meetings. By 6, I had coffee brewing. The smell drifted through the apartment, bitter and strong. By 6:30, I heard movement. Mom's door opening, her footsteps padding toward the kitchen. She stopped when she saw me, fully dressed, the dining table set with 3 places, a manila folder sitting at each spot. You're up early, she said carefully. Sit down, Mom. Something in my voice made her comply. She pulled out a chair, eyeing the folder in front of her like it might bite. Chelsea emerged minutes later, hair messy, makeup smudged. What's going on? Sit, I said. She sat. I remained standing, took a sip of my coffee, let them wait. Then I opened my folder. I did think about it, I began. My voice was level, calm, the kind of calm that comes after a storm, when everything is already destroyed and there's nothing left to lose. You wanted me to invest in family, so I did. I slid the first page across the table. A printed screenshot, Chelsea's Instagram story, my living room. The caption, some people have money but no taste. Mom glanced at it, looked away. Keep going, I said. More pages, screenshots of messages, Chelsea to her friends. My fat sister's loaded, but she's being a bitch about sharing. Mom to Aunt Linda. Sarah's being selfish as usual. Some things never change. Every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every time they'd laughed at my expense, I'd saved it all. Chelsea's face went pale. You went through my phone? You posted it publicly, I said. I just kept receipts. I slid another paper across. An itemized list. Every grocery item they'd consumed. Every utility they'd used. The streaming services. The Uber Eats orders. Calculated down to the cent. 2 weeks. $4,372. Mom's hand trembled slightly. Sarah, we're family. You don't charge family. You're right. I pulled out another page. This is a timeline. Every time you chose Chelsea over me. Her dance recital instead of my science fair. Her graduation party instead of mine. Her needs instead of my college fund. I watched Mom's face, waiting for recognition, remorse, anything. There was nothing. And this, I said, placing down the final document, is a cease and desist letter. My lawyer drafted it yesterday. You have 2 hours to pack and leave. If you contact me again, if you show up here, if you harass me in any way, I'll pursue legal action. The room went silent, dead silent. Chelsea found her voice first. You can't be serious. Over what? Some jokes? Jokes require both people to be laughing. Mom stood up, chair scraping. Her eyes were wet, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine or performance. She'd always been good at crying on command. Sarah, please, I'm your mother. You were my mother when it was convenient. When you needed something. When Chelsea needed something. I picked up my phone. I sent all of this to the family group chat. Everyone who was here last night. They know now. They know exactly what kind of people you are. Mom's face crumpled. Real tears now. Angry ones. You had no right. You had no right to treat me like an ATM with feelings you could ignore. Chelsea slammed her hand on the table. This is insane. We're family. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The sister I'd wanted to be close to my whole life. The one I'd forgiven over and over. Hoping someday she'd see me as more than the fat, smart one. The disappointment. The backup plan. Family doesn't do what you did, I said quietly. Family doesn't mock you online. Doesn't call you a cow. Doesn't laugh at your expense and then ask for $50,000. I walked to the door. Opened it. 2 hours. Mom tried one more time. The soft voice. The pleading eyes. Sarah, honey, where are we supposed to go? I don't know, Mom. But it's not my problem anymore. They packed in silence. I watched from my bedroom doorway as they gathered their things. Chelsea shoving clothes into her suitcase with angry, jerky movements. Mom moving slowly, like she was in shock. At exactly 8 o'clock, they stood at my door, bags in hand. Chelsea wouldn't look at me. Mom stared like she was seeing me for the first time. I always gave you everything, Mom whispered. You gave me everything except what I needed. The door closed behind them. The lock clicked. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence. Then I walked to the window and opened it. Seattle air rushed in, cool and clean, washing over my face. My phone buzzed. Text messages. Cousins apologizing. Aunt Linda saying she never knew. Uncle Marco asking if I was okay. I blocked Mom's number. Blocked Chelsea's. Deleted them from every platform. Then I sat on my couch, in my apartment, in my peace. For the first time in my life, the silence wasn't loneliness. It was freedom.